Whenever you're ready.
Hi there, I'm Danny Iny, and apparently I am the one.
Welcome to I Am the One, a show that features courageous entrepreneurs who decided that they were going to be the ones to make life better for the people that they serve. I'm Sonia Thompson, and today I've got a treat for you. I chatted with Danny Iny, founder of Firepole Marketing, and he dropped some bombs. Since 2011, Danny and his team at Firepole Marketing have been working hard, helping thousands of students build their online businesses. And after only 3 short years, the business now earns more than 7 figures in annual revenues. We can learn a lot from Danny's success. That's why I was so excited to talk with him so we could all learn from his experiences as an entrepreneur. So without further ado, here's Danny. Hey Danny, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you.
It's totally my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Sonia.
You are guest numero uno on the show, but I guess since you're in Montreal,
Woohoo!
maybe I should say number un. Is that right?
Yeah, numéro un.
So I wanted to just sit down and talk to you. You've been an entrepreneur for, I think, since you were 15 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? What was that business that you started when you were 15? And what gave you the confidence and the courage to say at such an early age, I can do this for such a big challenge?
Wow, it's a great question. Let's see. So the very first business I started when I was 15, it wasn't much of a business. I quit school and I figured I'd build websites because I knew how to write HTML, which is none of what you need to know to build websites.
Okay.
And so I started going door to door down the street, going from retail store to retail store, asking if they need a website. And I didn't understand, like, this is how naive I was at the time. I didn't understand that the clerk behind the counter in a clothing store is not the person who makes that decision. So that never got very far. And,
Okay.
one thing led to another. And, you just keep looking for opportunities and going after them. In terms of what made me think I could do it, I don't know. Why not? The default assumption should be that things are doable, things are figure outable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're glad that you continued along that path of figuring things out. You've definitely figured things out with Firepole Marketing. You've been wildly successful with that's your current business. What was the unmet need that you saw whenever you started to look at why you should be starting this business?
Firepole marketing?
Yes.
Well, back when I was, before I started Firepole marketing, I was just recovering from a collapsed startup and, rebuilding my consulting practice.
Yeah.
And I was providing marketing and business advisory services, basically consulting to small business owners and entrepreneurs. That was kind of my sweet spot, I like to say 0 to 10 employees and closer to 0 than to 10. And I found there were a lot of people in that kind of range who were doing well and they could afford my services and they built a lucrative practice. But there were also a lot of people who were not doing well at all and they needed a lot of help and they couldn't afford to pay for it. And so I was giving away a lot of my time for free, which is fine because, a lot of people helped me out for free when I was getting started and they didn't have to. So you pay it forward. But my time didn't scale. And I felt that there was a need here. There was a need for small business owners to get good, solid, actionable, not just marketing tips and tricks, but something that led to a bit of a deeper understanding, which is what drives real success for most people.
So you were able to find out like basically what they needed, and then because that was your sweet spot, is that why you said I'm going to be the one to go ahead and fill this unmet need that it's existing?
Sort of. I was already out there kind of looking for people to provide these services, and a lot of people were asking me for help along these lines. So the need in the broad sense kind of hit me right in the face, and I emphasize in the broad sense because in the specific sense I didn't get it and I got it wrong. But I was like, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to create something that's a little more scalable, a little more one to many, and that was the start of Firepole marketing.
Got it. All right. So as you've been going along through your different businesses, and now that Firepole Marketing especially is doing so well, what have you found has been the thing that has kept pushing you and keeping you forward through all the high highs that come along with entrepreneurship, all the low lows? What is it that keeps you hungry and pushing forward to just keep working to make it work and to keep going higher and help even more people?
That's a great question. You sent me that question in like the prep for the interview, and I had to really think about it because it's not, the default to me is to strive and do something.
Okay.
It's like there's something that is interesting. I'm a project person.
Right.
When I was a little kid, I would take on projects of, building costumes or, whatever I was doing. But like you take on a project
Right.
and just gravitate towards projects. When I have a day off, I can't sit at home doing nothing. I'm like, what am I doing? I've got to do something. I've got to fill the time. So I don't know how to answer that. Like the answer, the default is to be doing something for me.
Okay, doing nothing is not an option for you. Got it.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm just I refuse to do nothing. It's not like that. It's just like what would I be doing? I'd be bored. Like
You're just somebody. You're just always on the run, always working to make something happen. We get it, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing because you're naturally motivated, I suppose.
And there is a scale of challenge thing there, and that's definitely true. When you're feeling energized and things are going well, you're ready to take on bigger challenges. And this is something I haven't shared in too many places, but Firepole Marketing was actually, I mentioned that I kind of created it on the back of a startup disintegrating.
Right.
And when a startup falls apart, it's a lot like going through a really rough breakup. You've put so much into it and it all fell apart. After a rough breakup, you're not ready to get out there and meet someone new right away. You need to recover. You need to lick your wounds a bit.
You have to heal.
And so it took like a year. In Firepole Marketing, I took it on in part because I didn't have to raise a lot of capital. I didn't have to hire a lot of people. It wasn't a big commitment business. It was something that I could do on the side. The commitment was low. The risk was low. It was like I could try it, and I wouldn't be too tied down. I wouldn't be too invested. It was in a funny way, it was the rebound business. But then it kind of took on a life of its own.
The rebound turned into the one, right?
It really, really did.
That's awesome. So going back to what you just mentioned, you were coming off of a business that failed for a number of reasons. A lot of things happened, and you ended up with a lot of debt as a result. A lot of people, like you said, would have gone and licked their wounds and gotten a real job to go and work on paying off some of that debt, or to heal a little bit from the experience of something not working. What caused you to move into your rebound of Firepole Marketing onto the next thing without going and working for somebody else at that point?
Honestly, I think I had limited options.
Okay.
I had, after the startup fell apart, I had a lot of debt. It's not like, a couple thousand or tens of thousands of dollars. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So it's a lot of debt. And I think now with I wouldn't say very successful, in the grand scheme of very successful businesses, we're still like this big. But, with a successful business, a public persona, a track record, an MBA from a fancy school that I think was not worth anywhere near the time or money that I spent to get it, I think if I went out there and looked for a good job, I could get one. Okay. But at the time, I was younger. I was an entrepreneur who had tried to build a company that had fallen apart. I had quit high school to start my first business, so I didn't even have a high school diploma. I don't think I was in a position to get a hugely great job. Okay. Maybe I could have, maybe not. But even if I had gotten a reasonably good job, just doing the math, looking at how much I could stand to make, even in a best case scenario, minus living expenses, how much is left over. Even if I live on peanut butter and jelly for the next 10 years, it's like the amount of debt was so high that, okay, that was not a workable solution.
Got it.
Right? And I'm a person that I plan, I think about contingencies. I can't help it. It's, my wife tells me I should be more in the moment, and often she's right. But this is an area where it worked to my advantage, just, kind of doing that projecting and planning ahead. I was like, okay, that is not a viable option. So I'd have to find something else.
Got it. Now, aside from maybe getting your MBA, since you said it maybe didn't provide the most value for you, looking back over...
Best investment of my life, actually. Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad to hear. Aside from your MBA, possibly, is there anything else looking back to where if you had the opportunity to change it, that you would change, or would the MBA be the thing?
Honestly, I don't believe in regret. I don't believe in the road not taken because it's like those movies. You go back in time and you eat a different sandwich and you come back and Germany won World War II or something.
Right.
Like you don't know what the repercussions are. Um, I like my life. Things are good. I like the impact and the contribution I can make. I like the people I work with,
Mm-hmm.
and what I bring to the table to be able to do that is the sum total of my experiences. I like to think that even when I made the wrong decision, the quote unquote wrong decision,
Right.
I did the best I could with what I had, with the knowledge, awareness, expertise I had. And so if I went back to that position from where I was standing and sitting at the time, it would have been the right decision again.
Got it.
So I don't believe in regret. Even my MBA, which was a big waste of time and money, in my opinion, not because it was a bad school, just because I think higher business education is in crisis and becoming increasingly irrelevant. First of all, I met my wife while I was doing my MBA. She had an MBA. She was working a good job for like a big consulting firm. She had like a real job. This was before she quit and came to work with me. Um, and I think the fact that I was doing the MBA and that I was doing consulting work, although in a very different context, it was a bit of common ground. I don't know if I'd be married without it. And even with a very looking at specific business applications, if I look at my medium to long term goal for where I want to go in my business life and career, and really firepool marketing is like this much of it. Like there's a lot more. The massive global dysfunction of the higher business education industry is the billion-dollar opportunity that I'm really excited about.
Very cool.
And I don't know if I'd be completely aware of it if my time and money hadn't been so wasted by my MBA. So things work out.
It all works out. It's all part of the bigger story, yeah? So what overall has been your biggest lesson learned through all these experiences with these businesses, your MBA, working with your clients?
Um, wow. Well, there's a ton of them.
Okay.
Um, and honestly, I think one of the biggest lessons learned is that there isn't a single biggest lesson learned. I mean, I remember like I was constantly seeking, what is the one secret, the one trick, the one, and the reality is that success is a little more complex than that.
Yeah.
Competency and ability, they're a little more complex than that.
Mm-hmm.
And the trouble is that they don't look that way because there is simplicity on the near and on the far side of complexity. And so once you are an expert, once you have really understood something, it is relatively simple. There are simple answers. The thing is, until you've gone through all that, the simple answers just seem like platitudes and they don't make sense. And so I guess what it comes down to is that you've got to put in the time, you've got to do the work. I guess that is a good way to boil it down, actually, because I've seen a lot of people be very, very successful, celebrated for their rapid success, myself included to a limited extent. Although, I don't understand the track record people are looking at, right? I mean, I've been at this since I was 15. So it wasn't that fast by that record. And,
You're the overnight success in 10 years, huh?
That's exactly it. And it's funny, like in the very early days of firepool marketing, I used to say something like, yeah, I've been at this for about 10 years, so I think I'm about due for my overnight success.
Right.
Sorry, I'm using a screen dimming app with sunset, and it's my screen's starting to turn orange. I'm just going to fix that. All right, sorry.
No problem.
But yeah, so it's we love the story of the magical instant transformation. We celebrate it everywhere, right? Like the years of training or hard work. That's when you're watching a movie, that's the stuff that gets lost on the editing room floor when you're watching a 30-second montage. That's how we like to look at it. But everyone I know who's been very successful, especially in a short amount of time, they put in the work.
The work, you can't avoid that. You can't avoid that part. Yep. Now, do you think that what it takes, I know putting in the work is something that's universal, whether you're at the beginning of your career, you're in the middle of growing a business that seems to be doing well. Are there different components of what makes a business work well, depending on different stages that you're in? Like, is there more of a certain ingredient that you need in the beginning versus when you're sort of 2 or 3 years in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's another reason it's hard to boil down to just the one thing sort of thing. There's a metaphor that I really like, and this comes from a philosophy book I read, I don't know, 10 years ago or something.
Okay.
And the metaphor is this idea of skyhooks and cranes. So if you want to build a giant tower, you want to raise something up really, really high, you can have a skyhook, meaning a hook that just hangs in the air and use that to hoist things up. And of course, that doesn't exist because you can't just hook things in the air. That's the fairy, the imaginary, the not real or possible option. Or you can have a giant crane, which is something that sits on the ground and reaches way up high. And the interesting thing about that is that if you want to build a giant crane, you do it with smaller cranes, right? Smaller cranes are, if you go to a job site, you'll see there's a little crane that goes and builds the bigger crane.
Oh, okay.
And business is kind of like that. Depending on where you are in your business, you need different things. People love to talk about, who are just getting started, virtual assistants and systems and processes. And you know what? That's all getting way ahead of yourself. When you're one guy just starting out, you need to bring in sales. You need to get people to give you money, find out what it is that is attractive enough to them for them to open their wallet, give you money, and you've got to fulfill on that, and they've got to be happy with the outcome.
Right.
Once you've done it once, you've got to repeat, do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Once you see the patterns, once you see where you can start optimizing and scaling, that's when you start doing more of it. But you start out with just, how do I do that? And then you look at multiplying that. And as you multiply that, you're going to start looking at systems a little bit. You're going to start looking at hiring people to help out, whether it's virtual assistants, whether it's full-time. And I've always leaned towards full-time. I think part of someone's time buys you a tiny fraction of their focus. So you want people fully invested in what you're doing. As you grow, as you start having more people, you've got to start paying more attention to the people side of managing a business. And you're actually managing a team. Right? And as you manage a team, and especially as the team grows, you start needing a little more in place on a strategic side. You need to get better at cash management, right? When you're just one guy and you're paying two, people who are working part-time trying to make things work, you have a bad month, you put it on your credit card, right? It's not good business practice. Every business coach is going to shoot me for saying it, but that's what we all do.
It's reality.
Yeah. But then you fast forward a year and a half, and I had this moment with, because my wife works with us now, she's our CFO, and we were looking at the numbers, and it's like, look, we spent $110,000 last month. It's like, in a bad month, I can't put that on my credit card. So you start looking at tighter financial management, and where can you improve your margins and create cash reserves.
Right.
And as you do that, you start bringing on more people, more specialists. As you begin to hire the first 1, 2, 3 people, they tend to be generalists, kind of like the skill set of an entrepreneur.
Right.
When you're looking at the 6th, 7th, 8th employee, they tend to be much more specialized because now you have an area in your business that is specific and focused and requires a full-time person. And as you reach that scale, you realize, managing 8 or 10 people or 15 is different from managing 3 or 4 or 5. You can manage a team of 4 or 5. You can't manage 8 or 10 or 15 because, there's only so many hours in the day. You're going to go crazy, drive everybody nuts, and accomplish nothing. And you've got to start stepping into more of a leadership role than a management role. And really that just starts beginning around, 8 to 15 employees. And I know that it continues to change. It continues to evolve. The needs continue to be different. But right now, as we speak, I have 14 people on the team. We're hiring 3 more. We're in the middle of a giant launch that will hopefully, knock on, there's some wood, whatever. It'll be very successful.
I'm sure.
But we did last year about $1.25 million. And it sounds like a big number, but it's really not. In the grand scheme of business success, it's still, we're this big. And I'm hoping to triple the size of the business in the next year. And I don't know what's going to be involved in making that happen. And I think you asked about the one thing, and I keep coming back to a different one thing, which is part of the challenge.
It's okay.
But if you want to be growing a business, and especially if you want to be doing it quickly, and this has been challenging for me, you've got to recognize that your job description as the entrepreneur is going to keep changing. And it's hard sometimes because you get to a point where, things are working well, you're enjoying it, you're having fun. You're like, I wish I could just enjoy this for a while and not have it change on me in like the next 3 weeks. And it's totally a matter of choice. You can grow a business to $500,000, $1 million, 100,000, whatever it is,
Right.
and say, this is what I want, I'm satisfied. And I've found it's a lot easier to hold a business stable than it is to grow it. But as long as you want to grow it and grow it fast, you've got to recognize that part of your job is always getting comfortable with a new job description. It's like if you're working for another company, when you get hired, there's a period of time where you're kind of learning the ropes.
Right.
To a certain extent, that's what it's always like
It's
in my
always your
job.
first 90 days.
Yeah, which is challenging because I mean there are things that you learn to do well, but too much of the time you're playing in an area that you're not an expert in yet, which is exhilarating and you learn fast and you learn a ton, but it's also a little stressful.
Absolutely. So maybe some of the advice in there is not to get too married to a specific plan of this is exactly how it's going to work and we're going to stick to this course of action just because things change so rapidly.
Absolutely. Recognize that the systems and processes you're building, the plans that you're making, they can be amazing and work perfectly when there are three of you, not so much when there are nine of you or
Right.
whatever. And it's not just about not being attached to these things, it's about kind of almost embracing this feeling of, oh, okay, this is new. I haven't done this before, but I think I can figure this out. And that's important. We touched on this at the very beginning that there's an attitude of figure out ability. I don't know this, but I'm sure I can figure it out. Somewhere in the world, there is someone less capable than me who has figured this out. So I must be able to do this.
Absolutely. Just got to put in the work to do it. Everything is figure outable. All right. Any parting words of wisdom that you might have for entrepreneurs or people who are working to build a business, trying to get to their first million or first 100,000 or whatever their goal might be?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
So the first is, we threw around the million mark, the 100,000 mark, and these are both targets people often set for themselves, mostly because they're very clear around numbers, more so than because they're actually important milestones in a business. And it's important to really think about, what are your goals? What is the business you want to build? How much time do you want to put in? Um, Building any successful business is hard work. It would be a real shame to do all that hard work and build the business you don't even want. Like, that would be a real unfortunate experience. And success means very different things to different people, right? To some people, it's a laptop on the beach. To someone else, it's a glass castle. And you don't want to find yourself in one when you want the other. So there is that. And other than that, I mean, if someone has internalized everything that we've talked about, being willing to figure things out and not being strongly attached to things, I think the parting. I'm actually going to steal this from a professor of mine at my MBA. There were like two or three super valuable moments in the whole year plus program. This is one of them.
Okay.
And this professor, who was amazing, one of the best professors I had, he was talking about, I don't remember what it was a stats class or something. And he asked a question that wasn't about the specific curriculum. Like, we were doing a case exercise, and so it was related to the subject matter of the case. Hey, does anyone know why, this or that? I think it was like, we're doing a case about, operations and chicken, like farms or whatever, and production of white meat and dark meat. So it was like, does anyone know what the difference is between white meat and dark meat? And I happen to know because in a previous life I studied martial arts and looked into exercise science, and so it's slow twitch versus fast twitch muscle fibers. And my hand was the only one up. And I don't think I'm the only one who knew. I think other people were just like, this is not relevant, or, I don't care, let's move on. And the comment he made was, something, I've known a lot of very successful people, and they're all very, very different from each other. What they all had in common is they were all curious. They were all interested. They wanted to know why things are the way they are. They wanted to learn more about things. And you don't get to simplicity on the far side of complexity without having that curiosity, without immersing yourself in things. So if your information gathering is limited to tweets as the short form and blog posts as the long form, you're not going to get very far. Blog posts are the samplers where you figure out what's interesting and whose books you want to buy and read the books and study the courses and like really immerse yourself in something. It takes time and it takes work, but that's the work that's really worth doing. That's what gets you to simplicity on the far side of complexity.
Awesome. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool, Danny. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. I think we've lots of great pearls of wisdom that the audience can use to work on continuing to build their business and get to their goals. Before we go, I do have one other question for you. Maybe this might be once you triple your business in size. I know there's always a lot of things that our music choices can tell about us. Is there any song or music or artist in particular that whenever you hear it, it just always makes you want to get your dance on and put you on the dance floor? Maybe this will be the one that you'll be dancing to whenever you hit that tripling your business goal in a year's time?
Honestly, I'm the wrong person for that question. I do not dance. I make an exception to dance once with my wife if we go to a wedding.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not a guy who dances.
Not at all.
But I will say that as a kid, I always loved all the classic Disney cartoons. And there's the training montage song from Mulan. And, I'll still put it on and watch it on YouTube or something, or while I'm training, at least once a month.
Awesome. Bop your head to it a little bit as you're training. Thank you so much, Danny. This has been great.
Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you for having me. This was totally, totally a pleasure, and I'm honored to be your inaugural guest on the show. I think it's going to be fantastic.
oh, awesome. Thank you again. Danny shared lots of great information with us, and one of the things that stood out for me in particular was the importance of defining what success looks like for you in your business. So that brings me to today's question for you. As you put in all the hard work to build your dream business, what does success look like for you? What's the goal you're striving for? Think about it and then let me know in the comments. I'll be waiting there for you. Now, if by chance you are not signed up to get regular updates via email on how to grow your business, scoot on over to mytrybusiness.com and get signed up. Then you'll get the good stuff delivered straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep working on building your dream business so you can make life better. Somebody's waiting on you. Thanks for watching.